Hey, it's Glenn, and I'm back with another episode of Versus Memes. Today's topic, atheism versus memes. I thought it would be fair, since the first episode we did right-wing Jesus versus memes. So this episode we're doing atheism versus memes. Still gonna piss people off. So far, this new series is all about pissing people off, I guess. And again, some of these memes make me laugh, some of these memes make me angry, some of these memes I'm just like, yeah, right on, I get it. So let's go through, see what we've got. Okay, first meme, dude from Despicable Me. So, you're an atheist. Go ahead and explain all laws of physics, quantum mechanics, chemistry, how everything works in the universe, and how life started. Like, okay. Yeah, this is one that kind of just irritates me because I'm drinking coffee, by the way. Don't worry, it's fake. Yeah, just because it seems to be a talking point you run into a lot in these discussions, debates, arguments between Christians and atheists, where the Christian argument is, well, we have the explanation for everything, and that is God. You can't explain anything, even though you have all of these scientific facts behind what you're saying. You know, you still can't tell us why we're here. You haven't been able to use the scientific method to answer the philosophical question of why are we here? But the thing is, all of these things discussed in the meme, all of these things referenced in the meme, the laws of physics, quantum mechanics, chemistry, it's an ongoing process of trying to figure out the answer to the great mystery in a scientific method. It doesn't negate the idea of God. It also has yet to prove the idea of God, but it isn't about, science is not about a quick, simple answer. Religion is. That's how I feel about it. Let's move on to the next meme. Remember, O man, that thou art dust, and unto dust thou shalt return. Ew, religion, so irrelevant. We are all made of stardust. Wow, science is so profound. Right, so, you know, like, I think it's profound either way you look at it, this statement that, you know, we're cosmic dust, we're stardust. From dust we came, to dust we shall return. Whether it's a religious perspective or a scientific perspective, it's the same message. And I don't think that message coming from either a religious person or an atheist changes how profound it is, and how, you know, it just kind of highlights the evanescence of our experience here. So, I don't think people who are saying religion is irrelevant, I don't think I've ever heard them use the dust to dust quote to illustrate the irrelevance of religion. So, I feel like this meme is being a little bit dishonest if it's trying to show that there's a hypocrisy in an atheist calling religion irrelevant when they see, it's like, yeah, there's far more going on when an atheist says religion is irrelevant. If an atheist even says that, like, just not holding to any religious viewpoint doesn't mean you think religion is irrelevant. You know, this is going to be a hard episode to do because I could just go off for hours on probably any one thing that is brought up. So let's look at an easier one. The look you give other atheists during the dinner prayer. Yeah. Right on, I guess. It's not much to say there about that one. It's just funny if it's, relatable to you. Okay. So, these next two memes kind of mirror each other. Atheism, the belief that there was nothing, and nothing happened to nothing, and then nothing magically exploded for no reason, creating everything, and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason whatsoever into self-replicating bits, which then turned into dinosaurs. Makes perfect sense. And the next one, I'm gonna hold my comments on the first one until we get through the next one. God, the belief that there was nothing, and then suddenly God appeared out of nowhere and made everything after that. And he hates gays. Makes perfect sense. Okay. So clearly, here is the thing. We come back to the unanswerable question, or I would say the unanswered question, is how did something come from nothing? And honestly, the thing that I think is funny is that, most the Christianity versus atheism, let's be clear, that is not always a thing. An atheist will usually be fine with you being a Christian as long as you're not using that to hurt people or trying to judge them or convert them. And most Christians I know don't have a problem with atheists. It's like everybody's just doing their own thing. But when it does come to atheists and Christians who do lock horns, one of the arguments is, back to you're saying we came from nothing, is what a Christian, someone who believes that God created the universe, will say. Atheists think that the universe just appeared out of nowhere, and that's ridiculous. The universe couldn't have appeared out of nowhere. It needed God to set it in motion. But then the atheist can turn around and use the exact same argument with someone who believes that God created the universe, because the place that the religious argument won't ever seem to go is that God also has to have come from somewhere. So yeah, that's what these two memes back to back illustrate, is that no one knows how we got here, and I have ideas that I would take an hour to expound upon, and I'm not going to do that in a versus memes video. But yes, I do think, well, okay, no, I'm not going to go there, but yeah, it's just funny because no one really has that answer, but religious people think they do with God. God created the universe, and that answers how and why we are here, but they don't have an answer for where did God come from. Like, if God can spontaneously pop into existence without something or someone setting God in motion, then the universe, all of us in the universe, could just pop into existence spontaneously without anything or anyone to set us into motion. The fact is, we are here. So, at some point, there was a first something. And the idea that God can spontaneously pop into existence is no more nor less absurd than the idea that the universe itself could spontaneously pop into existence. Okay, so back to the idea of God hating gays. Devout Darwinist atheist does not accept that homosexuality is biologically unnatural. Okay, so the suggestion here is that if you are a scientist who does not believe in God, then science obviously should show you that homosexuality is unnatural. That beeping is my coffee pot clocking out for the day, just so you know. But the fact is that science shows, like biological science shows that homosexuality is natural. Like it is objectively natural because you find it throughout the animal kingdom. Mammals, insects, birds, you find it all over the place. There are countless examples of homosexuality in nature, aside from humans, because it is nature. So, yeah, there is a reason that a devout Darwinist atheist would not accept that homosexuality is biologically unnatural, because it's not biologically unnatural. Alright, next meme. Vampire hunter takes out a cross. Atheist vampire. I love the idea that, like, as long as a vampire doesn't believe in God, then the crucifix isn't gonna work on them. That's hilarious to me. You know, pointless, just funny. That's one of the ones that just makes me laugh. Alright, next one. Atheism. Like a fish denying the existence of water. I mean, this one I just think is stupid, because obviously it's not the same thing. Because a fish, if a fish, say, had the intellectual capacity to debate whether or not water exists, clearly water exists, because you can feel it, you can touch it, they swim through it, they can jump up out of it into the air and splash back down into it. God is not the same. Like, we cannot see, touch, taste, feel God in an objective way in our daily lives. Like, a spiritual experience is singular. It's anecdotal evidence whether it occurred or not. It is anecdotal because you can't show it to someone. You can tell someone about it. Like a fish can tell someone about water if they had the ability to speak. And then they can show them the water. They can say, hop on in, the water's great, let's go for a swim. And you can see the water. So, not a good argument at all. Okay, question. Prove that God doesn't exist. Answer. Okay. Show me how it's done by proving Zeus and Apollo don't exist, and I'll use your method then. Like, that's a really good point, because I think it was Ricky Gervais who said, which I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, on a talk show I saw once, he made a really good point that I thought was great. I think it was Stephen Colbert, who's a devout Catholic. And so they were discussing this topic, and he said to Stephen Colbert, like, he asked him if he believed in other gods, you know, and he didn't. And he's like, see, you're an atheist too, with one exception. It's like, you think that the idea of the Greek gods is absurd, but there's one god you make an exception in that thinking for. So I think that's interesting. It's like, the God you're told to believe in all your life, you dismiss any of the holes in that plot. That you don't have the same generosity for Zeus or Horus. You just don't. They're like, no, those are clearly silly stories. Those are just people trying to figure things out, and like, how did we get here and why is this like that? And yeah, but when it comes to your God, you don't apply the same scrutiny. And I'm not trying to take a side in these videos. I'm just presenting and then, sharing my thoughts. Like, sharing my observations and my thoughts on what these memes are saying, if they're saying anything. So here's Willy Wonka, a man of many contradictory opinions in the meme universe. So, you're an atheist. Please debate with me for hours about the Bible you've never actually read. Okay, now that is a huge misconception. The fact is, pretty much every firm atheist I know is well versed in the Bible, and that's why they're atheists. It's like, I can't believe that there's this petty monster god sitting on a cloud worrying about who's having butt sex. Which isn't really a very prevalent theme in the Bible, but you have a petty monster god in the Old Testament. There's no getting around that. He's jealous, he's insecure, he changes the plan left and right. And so people who study the Bible closely see all of these things, and they see all of the inconsistencies, the plot holes, if you will. And that's why they don't believe it. And that's what an atheist is. Like let's get our definitions down. An atheist is not someone who believes that there is not a God. An atheist is simply someone who does not believe that there is a God. And there is a difference between believing something and not believing. Like, atheism is the lack of a belief regarding God in the purest sense. And theism, a theistic viewpoint, says there is a God, and religious dogma says we believe there is a God. But yet atheism is not an active belief system. It's simply the lack thereof. Like, you can be an atheist and be perfectly open to the possibility that there is a God. If you say you're agnostic and you're like, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, that is still technically atheism, because you do not actively believe that there is a God. If you think there is a God, but you do not believe that there is a God, I don't know if that, because it's still theistic thinking, but it's not, I don't know. But for the purposes of this video, we're saying atheism is simply the lack of a belief. And all atheists I've ever had conversations with have studied the Bible. So many atheists come from deeply religious backgrounds, grew up, breathed the Bible in and out day and night for all of their formative years. So to assume that someone is only an atheist because they haven't read the Bible is ignorant. Atheism, the cult of death, no love for God, no truth, no morality, no afterlife. Atheism, Satan's latest trap. This one is just ridiculous. the cult of death. Like, whether you believe in God or not, you're still gonna die. You know, we all wind up in the dirt, so to speak. And atheism isn't a cult of death just because they don't believe in an afterlife per se. If you want to talk about death cults, Christianity is all about death. What happens to you when you die? You're living your life to either go to heaven or hell when you die. It's kind of obsessive. And atheists, in my experience, are far more concerned with life because, they're not concerned with the afterlife. So to call it a death cult seems unfair. And that it's not a cult because there's not like a dogma that is taught and indoctrinated into their lives. It's just they don't believe in God. But no truth, no morality. What? Like, the idea that you cannot be a moral person without religion is insulting. It's so easily disproved because there are so many good people in the world who are atheists, so many people who do good things, so many people who, in my estimation, live a life with more gospel Jesus aligned values than people who claim to be followers of Christ. And I would argue that doing good things because you don't want to go to hell, or because you do want to go to heaven, or because your religious leader told you to do good things and you're an obedient follower of the faith, is not ethical. It's amoral. It's blind allegiance and obedience. Whereas if you don't have the promise of a reward for doing good, or the promise of eternal hell for doing bad, and you choose for your own reasons to do good, or what you consider to be good, that is an ethical choice that you're making. That is true morality. That's what I would say. So, to hell with that meme. Let's move on to the next one. When you're an atheist and you haven't told anybody in 10 minutes. Like, true story. I mean, but it's like not just atheists, it's kind of every group that is sort of the uncommon group, like vegans, atheists, LGBTQ people. Like, pick a group of people who are kind of in the minority or profoundly in the minority. I've noticed this, they will, like, vegans will always put veganism into a conversation. It's, the small groups, they want to be heard, and they kind of have to speak up for themselves and say, hey, I'm here too, I'm here. It's like, as an atheist, I think, as a vegan, I think, as a bisexual, I think, it's just kind of reminding people you're in the room. So, I don't hold this against anyone. It's like, and I have Christian relatives who post nothing else on Facebook, so everything they post is about Christianity. Like, they can't get through a sentence without mentioning their Christianity. So it's kind of everybody who's passionate about something that no one really wants to hear about. So yeah, this meme, more or less, true story. Moving on. People should not impose their religious beliefs on others. Which is why I'll use government to impose my atheism on you. Now this one's just irritating too. A lot of these are irritating to me. as it turns out. Mostly the anti-atheist ones are irritating to me because they generally seem to be coming from a place of ignorance about being an atheist or atheist thinking. Because, like, here, like, the whole separation of church and state thing gets to me. The argument, like, the Christian nationalists, let's go there. I mean, we went there in the last episode. But, like, Christian nationalists try to spin it that not letting them impose a specific brand of Christianity on everyone. You know, public schools, every kid, whether they are a Christian, an atheist, a Satanist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Jew, whatever, a Wiccan, has to pray to Jesus, has to say the Lord's Prayer in the morning. Like, I think my dad told me that when he was in high school, they had to say the Lord's Prayer in public school every day. And the law has said, no, you can't make everyone pray to your God in school, separation of church and state. And so they take that as you are forcing us to be atheists. No, you're free to be a Christian. You're just not free to force everyone else to be a Christian. And that actually protects Christians as much as it protects everyone else. Because without that protection in the law, it's like freedom of religion is freedom from religion. If it isn't, then anyone in power can impose their religion on everyone. So if we give into Christian nationalism and make Christianity the national religion, you know, let's not even get into which version of Christianity then would we be going with. But if we did that, then Christians would no longer be protected. If we did away with the separation of church and state, freedom of religion, we are also getting rid of freedom from religion. And then, you know, if a Sharia Muslim winds up in power, we will all be Sharia Muslims. If that's even a term. I'm ignorant about Islam. I want to study it more. Just being upfront about that. Always be upfront about your ignorance, kids. That's how you learn. But, you know, or if Jewish people take power, then Jewish faith becomes the state religion. Like, if you allow a state religion to happen, religion is no longer truly protected under the law. So imposing the freedom of / from religion on everyone is actually, it's definitely not imposing atheism. It's allowing everyone to worship or not worship as they choose on their own time and in their own spaces. And that's my thought on that. And again, like, I'm going off too much on these memes today. Next episode, we're going to do something fluffy. Like Star Wars. Get through it in like just a few minutes. But then again, I can talk, so who knows. So let's wrap up with a couple of fun ones. This one. Okay, you have to look closely at this image here. For the atheist, this is starting off, like, this is a manger scene. Like, Joseph and Mary, the parents of Jesus, praying over baby Jesus in the manger. But for the atheist, this is an epic battle scene as two bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus Rexes fight to the death in front of a running table saw. And I can't unsee it. That's what it is. It's two T-Rexes fighting over a table saw. So that's fun. I mean, come on, that's funny even if you're religious, right? And to wrap it up, and to kind of segue into the next episode, in which we will be doing Star Wars versus memes. That's the plan anyway. Don't hold me to it, kids. I'm a flake. Alright. If God isn't real, then how come Picha, Chaka, no Wookie, Bonoa, Tuipa, Slofo, ho 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 ho. Christians 0, Atheists 0, Jabba 1. So Jabba the Hutt wins this episode, boys and girls and all the rest. It was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. The past 2 whole episodes, Christians, atheists, or right-wing Christians, atheists. Jabba the Hutt's the one with all the answers. So, there you go. You've learned something today. And one day, probably, Star Wars will be a religion. Anyway, so that wraps up another Versus Memes episode. If you enjoy this silly little series, or any of the other weird stuff I do on this channel, please consider subscribing because it helps me to feel famous and loved. Though I may be neither of the two. No, I'm loved. I love myself, if nothing else. And if you like this video in particular, please hit the little thumbs up down below. And until next time, don't believe anything you read on the internet.